Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. We want to let you know that we have once again been honored with a nomination for the Hockey Podcast of the Year via the Sports Podcasting Awards. And all you need to do to help us is go to ourkidsplayhockey.com and click on the Vote Now button. It asks you a couple questions. You're in and you're out, and you have voted for us for Hockey Podcast of the Year. I want to thank you all for being a wonderful, wonderful audience and helping us get to this stature of hockey podcasting, because we've done it as a family, as the hockey friends and families around the world. Thanks so much and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friends and fellow co-hosts, Christy Casciano-Burns and Mike Benelli, and we are joined today by our special guest, Gary Dworkowitz. Those of you that coach in the New York region will know Gary's name, as he has worked as a presenter at many USA Hockey coaches clinics. He is also a special education teacher for the past 25 years. That's what he's been doing. And he's been the head coach for North Rockland High School since the 91-92 season. Happy 30-year anniversary on that one, Gary. He also served as an assistant high school football coach for the same amount of time. So he's well-versed in sports in general. Gary's experience in the game beyond coaching is vast, and he has served in the New York Rangers fan development department for the past 10 years, doing camps, clinics, and special events. And he's also the host of the If You Build It podcast, a show that focuses on mental health in sports, and one that has had some pretty notable guests on it so far. Make sure you check that out. Give it a listen. It's pretty good. Also, above all, Gary is a husband to Rose, a father to Matthew, and we are pleased to welcome to the show today. Gary, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Thank you very much. It's the nicest introduction, nicest things people said about me in a while, right, Mike?
Yeah, every day somebody has something nice to say about you, Gary.
Well, I'll tell you what, Gary. We have a great producer, Caitlin, who we mention all the time on here, who did a lot of the research on you. We like to make sure our guests have a bio you can sink your teeth into, and so that the people listening know that, we're not just bringing schmoes on, right? We want to bring on people that know what they're talking about. So that brings us kind of to the first question. Gary, we're all in the same space here as we're hockey parents, hockey coaches, we're involved in the game. But what I love about your approach over the past 30 years is you've really kind of focused on the mental side, the team building side, the idea that this is more than just a game. As a special education teacher, you have again, your teeth kind of sunk into developing people. So, you've created this podcast recently. Why is your direction kind of focusing more on developing the people than just players at this point?
I think it's the most important thing. I think a lot of times for a coach, the best days in coaching are when your former players come back. How many weddings, special events you get invited to. It gives you a feeling that you've had at least a little bit of an impact on people that you work with. And those aren't the things you can't buy those in stores. Like, they're very special relationships. And I also come to realize, and I've spoke to, Mike about this a number of times, and I spoke to you about it a little bit too. It's like, your words as a coach are very powerful. And I've, of course, like everybody else, I've made a number of mistakes. But as time goes on, like, you realize you could say one thing that could make a difference in a player's life in a positive way to inspire them to keep going and doing things, or you could say something that's detrimental that would make a player not want to play and continue. And I think it's a big responsibility. And I take it very seriously, but I also, I want to live my life with meaning. And to me, like, there's no more important things than kids and trying to have a little tiny part in something that's positive.
Right. And sometimes do you think it's the way that you say it, not necessarily what you say, that really matters? Maybe you can dissect that a little better and help coaches learn from what your mistake was.
Well, I think that what guys help me with this, like, the players won't care until they know that you do. There's a different version to that. I don't think, and I'm certainly not comparing children to animals, but there's a sense that children have that they know authentically if you really care about them or not. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with if it's on the school side of things or if it's on the sports side of things, but I think the kids really know. Once they really know that you truly authentically care about them, then I think you have more leeway to be more of a sport parent to them, meaning like there's sometimes you have to deliver difficult messages to them, but they're honest. and they understand where they're coming from, as opposed to if you don't have that relationship with the player or student. I think then it's looked in a different lens. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I try
Yeah,
to
you did.
I try to
Yeah.
focus on the relationship part first, and making sure that, like, for example, during hockey season for us, we have to bus everywhere. So I try to have a little checklist of players that I'll talk to a player on the way to the rink, invite the player to the front of the bus, same thing on the way back. Pre-practice, I'll try to grab another player or two and just check in with them with different situations. Sometimes there's academic situations where players and kids they're clashing with teachers. Sometimes there might be something going on a home front. Sometimes there might be some internal conflicts with other players on the team, whatever it is. But I think those things are just as important as any drill you're on or any tactic that you're trying to put in. So I've gotten better schooled at that as time's going on, but to me those things are just as important.
Yeah, you really got to be tuned in, right?
You have to, like anybody else, like any parent, like you're an extension now as a coach or a teacher. You're an extension, and to get true movement, you need the partnerships. So like on the school side, like I need the moms and dads to be involved, and we're pulling the same direction. I think it's the same thing. If you're coaching a child on any level and you're trying to instruct them, if they're getting a different message at home, well, don't listen to your coach. Your coach doesn't know what they're doing. At the end of the day, right, guys, it's not going to be productive.
I think it's important that everyone understand, like when you look at the parent to the coach to the player, right? Parents are the first trusting person in a kid's life, whether they're trustworthy or not. That's just part of being a child. You're going to most likely trust your parents. So they're getting that definition of trust, and hopefully it's a good one, from their parents at home. And then the coach has to earn that trust, right? And these kids come in the locker room with whatever their definition of that word is. So Gary, what you're saying about being authentic is 100% correct, right? And here's the thing: kids can read through bullshit. I'll just say the curse word out there right now. They know. You know why? Because they're bullshitters. So they're better at seeing it than most adults are. I'm just calling it a spade there. But yeah, kids know when you're not being authentic. I think that's kind of unwritten sometimes. Maybe coaches think, well, I have to act as, no, be you. They're going to know if you're not being yourself, right? I think that's super important. And then, like you're saying, man, it starts with trust. Yeah, that's what trust is knowing, hey, you can trust me. Then the coaching can begin, right? Not until that's established.
Yeah, Gary. So this is so intriguing to me, this whole subject, because of our landscape that we have right now as educators and hockey coaches and parents, right? That the world of sport is moving to club rather than your school. And, we've seen it happen in soccer. We're seeing it happen in lacrosse. It's harder to happen in football, probably, but certainly ice hockey, it's a real problem, right? So just maybe you could speak just on your background, and because you're working with kids and teenagers every day, that real, how important that relationship is, and the ability to know that, as a club coach, and with my 15-year-olds, I have no idea what they do during the day. I don't know what their grades are. I don't know how they interact with their classmates. I don't know how they interact with teachers. But maybe you can say, from your point of view, from a place where, especially maybe from the football side, you have kids in school with you in your classroom, and you're really, from a school perspective, dug in with them much, much deeper, philosophically, emotionally, through your communication. Maybe speak a little bit about that, and how maybe we're missing a lot of that opportunity when we advocate for youth sports to go out of the school and be no longer part of the educational process.
Okay. I think I understand what you're asking. So on the school side, so I work in the middle school during the day, and then I'm in the high school after hours. So during the day, if there's an issue with a player that either playing for me or in either sport, the guidance counselors in the high school know that if they call me, that I will follow up. I will take action. Now, that doesn't make me a great guy. It doesn't make me a genius. Doesn't make me any of those things, but it does indicate that I'm going to follow up. So I'll talk to the player. If I need to, depending on the relationship I have with the parents, I might give the parents a little bit of a heads up to say, listen, I'm going to be going to the high school. I'm going to be talking to your son today. This is why I'm talking to him. I got a call from the math teacher. math teacher offered extra help for 3 days, and then the player told the math teacher that they couldn't make it because they had to go to practice.
Right.
Now, where we're telling them, like, no, you can miss any practice we have. You can be late for any practice we have, rather. If you need to miss a practice, and it's a situation that depends on the particular child, but the message is clear. The education comes first. But I'm not going to get manipulated by a high school student that's telling their parent one thing, they're telling the teacher another thing, then they're telling their coach something else. So we just get it like right out there. But the bottom line is, I would say to my principal, say, listen, I need to leave the school for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is. I need to go talk to a player. I get supported that way. Our district is good that way. But because of the length of time I've been doing it, the guidance counselors will reach out to me. And listen, guidance counselors have their own frustrations, right? Like when coaches don't follow up on those things. But to me, it's like, listen, I've coached 30 years of high school hockey. I've had one Division I hockey player, one. So we're talking about hundreds of kids, and the one is current now. So it's 30 years, one Division I player. So
Yes.
The bottom line is, like, we're still developing people, and like, kids, they get lost a little bit. But anyway, I think the school side, if you're a coach and you work in the district where you coach, okay, I think there's an extreme advantage to that if you choose to care about those things. So even in the off season, I'll tell players, like, listen, there's job opportunities here. Is anybody looking for a job? We help get them placed in jobs. And there's conversations before that, like, listen, this is a favor. Christy calls me and says, listen, I'm looking for a kid to do, heavy lifting. I'm looking for a kid to do that. So I have a conversation with the kid and say, like, listen, this is a friend of mine. Are you, committed to doing this? And kind of, coach them up that way too, about how should they go dress, like just little things that some of the kids don't necessarily have all the support. We had a situation, unfortunately, last year where our head football coach had passed away. The guy had battled cancer for a while, and we were navigating things like the funeral. And, we had a Zoom call to make sure all the kids had clothing to wear, appropriate clothing, and there were kids that need that kind of support. We made arrangements to have one of the guidance counselors travel with us for any of the kids who might have had difficulty, with the services. Things like that, where kids know that you care. I don't know that you can get that on the club side, but I think it still has to do with more of the coach, what the coach believes. I've only coached club for 8U, and one of my buddies dragged me into that a long time ago. But if I was coaching club, one of my first priorities would be to try to build relationships, like team building, things like Lee does, different events, things like that. So there's thing, and I would check on the academics, because if you ask every player, like, hey guys, who wants to be a great player? Everybody's hand goes up. If you say, like, who wants to play after high school? Everybody's hand goes up. Okay, great. That's true. So this is what great players do. This is what players do who play after high school. They make sure they balance their days. They make sure they're putting time to their academics. They're making sure they're giving back to communities and people who afforded you the opportunity to play these sports. Like, there are things, and they're not always pleasant conversations because you have kids coming from different backgrounds. But I just think on the school side, to answer your question, I have a more captive audience, and I can have those relationships, and they're based over a long time. Like, I live in the town where I coach. So the kids who are playing for me, I've known them since, a lot of them, they're 5 or 6 years old. So, it's a different relationship.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about all the time on the show, is like, when you look at the club hockey, like, if I'm a coach, I'm really lucky if I had a kid for one season for 6 months. You get to really get to know a kid for 4 years. I mean, and that's, to me, like, where real development happens. That's where you really get to know people. Like, and I really get to know an individual in depth wise and all aspects of their life in a matter of 6 months, when I just barely picked them and then I'm looking to cut them. So I don't know. So I think your perspective from a teaching point of view, especially here in the Northeast, right, where it's different than Minnesota, and it's different where kids stay in school and they play high school hockey, and they go through the rigors of making a team as a freshman, battling through sophomore year and junior year, and then getting an opportunity to shine as seniors. We don't see that as much, I don't think, on the East Coast, because the primary driver is, well, I got to get out of high school hockey. And I think from my perspective as a parent, I want to advocate more for people like you to be in the classroom and teaching and coaching. And that to me is really where I get to see the impact of how a coach can impact a player.
Well, like Christy had asked before, and how you say it, right, is also important. So there's different frames for that. So, for example, now, like we have, and you guys know this, like we have all these opportunities for club hockey now. Club hockey is growing leaps and bounds. Girls hockey is growing leaps and bounds. So there's more opportunities. You have daily discussions, and you're hearing things about these programs on Division III levels talking about trying to, they're putting rinks on campuses. They're talking about raising their bar. Maybe some of them going to Division I. Like there's a lot of opportunities in hockey. So like we're telling our guys, look, if you want to play after high school, there's a lot of opportunities out there, and let's start doing some homework about where might be a good fit, as opposed to your coach saying, listen, you're never going to play college hockey. Mm-hmm. Like you saying like college hockey is Christy smiling. So someone said that's one of your kids, I guess. But to put college hockey in one bucket now, it's not, you know what I mean? There's so much, even someone says to you like, hey, I know my child's not a Division I player. They'll just play Division III. And in your head, like, listen, probably not, Division III hockey is low with a bunch of Division I players in a lot of instances, but I think it's also about educating. And I think that's a positive way to go about it. Here's what a D3 club player profile looks like. Here's what a D2 profile looks like, and so on and so forth. So we educate a little better. And that way the questions are more central to maybe where that player might fit. And obviously there's academic interest and there's a lot of things that go into it. But I think you make a better educated choice if you have more information. And I think that's kind of the way we try to do it now, rather than saying, hey, you're not this, you're not that. That's not kind of our job. We just kind of say, hey, what do you think your profile looks like? And we try to educate them on where a good fit might be.
Right. And it's student athlete. We always have to remind them. But I do have to give a plug for Division III programs, especially for women. It's great hockey. So I want parents who are listening, just don't get discouraged at all. D3 is fantastic. A lot of Sophia's friends play D3 hockey. I've been to a few of their games, and it's exciting. It's very competitive. They try to compete at the top level in their class, and lots of great competition. And schools are opening up D3 programs for young women now. It's wonderful to see. And as you said, they're building ranks, they're growing their programs, and it's a competitive environment, So D3 is coming on strong. So I have to give kudos to the D3
experience that I had, like coaching girls I've had on my team and in camps and things like that. I mean, the girls, and I guess I am generalizing a little bit, but they have like a more serious approach than some of the younger guys. I don't know, Mike, I don't know, or Lee, like I found like a lot of times with the girls, you give them the directions once and all right, coach, I got it. And off they go. And, some of the guys, I'm like, all right, you're telling them, you draw it on the board, you show them again. Like the girl's like, no, I got it. And there's a really nice maturity about them. And I don't know, I've had very positive experiences with the girls that I've coached.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. It's great hockey. It really is. And as I said, I'm, was looking at all the rosters that are growing, just here in the Northeast with college, and in Pennsylvania, Lee, there's been an explosion of D3 programs with colleges.
Ever since Penn State went Division I, hockey is continuing to grow here across the state. I mean, we don't talk to those people on the west side of the state in Pittsburgh, but I'm sure that they're doing well over there as well. No, Pennsylvania is doing well. Gary, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, we talk about this a lot in the show, is kind of the breakdown through levels, and the idea that really U10 and down, maybe U12 in some cases, is about developing good basic skill sets and the love of the game. And then when you get to that U12, U15 area, now you might get a little more serious about where you want to go. And as you said, there are so many between the ACHA, NCAA. I mean, there's hockey overseas, there's hockey, there's a lot of options for anybody who wants to play beyond high school. But I think that if anyone wants to succeed beyond 12th grade, right? In that U12, U15 time period is where you have to start developing the habits of a championship caliber athlete. And that, we always say the goal is great, the dream is great, and I will support anyone that has a goal or a dream if that's what they believe they want to do. But the process, the day in, day out work that you do, that's really the key. And obviously this transcends hockey in so many different ways. So I want to get your thoughts on, kind of the younger levels of hockey, and then that mid to graduation level of hockey. Of what do you think the core values that we should be focusing on? Is it slap shots and wrist shots, or is it other things?
Well, it's interesting because I was fortunate enough, like Mike had got me involved in some of the USA Hockey stuff, and he gave me, I don't remember what the different topics were, but I know the one we settled on was on habits, because that was the one I was most interested in. And I'm reading a book now, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, it's a good
I'm
book.
very in tune with habits, and that's honestly, that's what I would be focusing on. That's something you can do for all ages.
Right.
And there's simple things like, I mean, it's truly, it's nice to have the hockey mom on too, because some of the things I'm saying are towards the good parenting habits that we do for our kids, but just simple stuff that doesn't have to do with how fast you skate, things like that. You ask young athletes, hey guys, how much sleep do you think you need to do your best? It doesn't matter what we're doing tomorrow, but to do your best at school, do your best at practice. How many hours? And you get these different answers. And then you kind of follow up like, all right, do you know that answer or you don't? That's the first thing. Do the parents know for their kids? So you almost like work backwards if you're able to stop that. And then you get into some other basic stuff, like say, what are you putting into your body? Now, you're not going to go into a whole detailed nutrition thing, but with kids, you could say, listen, what are the two things that dehydrate you the most, right? Like I just did a clinic last week and we were doing this with the kids, just simple questions. And hopefully they get to the right answers. Okay, what did you eat, before you came to today's session? How long ago did you eat? Did you know if you ate an hour earlier and you substituted your iced tea for a water or a half and half on a Gatorade, that you'd have more energy than the practice? Think about how many more reps. Think about how good you could be. Like those kinds of things that you can try to impart to young players. But I think habits are really important. Does a child know how to make a time schedule for his or herself? If you're a typical player now, and let's just say you're playing on a school team and you're playing on a travel team, and you can pick your sport now because everybody's in travel, right? And you have the child make the schedule for the week, and you plugged in the academics, you plugged in the practices, games, all that stuff. It's not an easy thing to do. So some of those things do naturally lead yourself into bad habits. It's more drive-through, eating stuff because you're juggling kids and you don't have time. And now all of a sudden, your nutrition's not as good. You didn't do your homework after school. You're too tired from the night before, so you take a nap. Now you get back at home, it's late, but I got homework due tomorrow, and now I'm tired again. Getting good rest on a Sunday night, like take advantage and make sure you get a good 9-10 hours, because if you don't, you're setting yourself up for failure for the week. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you're a hockey player, or a basketball player, or just, you're a student who plays in the band or whatever it is. I think there are healthy habits that are applicable to kids, and everybody on this knows this, that the faster you can get those habits ingrained in a younger age, the better chance you have of them taking hold. On the opposite side, for us, the longer we go with our habits, the harder it is to reprogram an adult. So I think it's very important at a young age that the organizational habits, like we're asking kids, hey, how many of you guys, and I've seen Mike do this, and Lee, I'm sure you have as well, how many of you guys packed your own bags last night? You still have mom and dad packing your bag? How many of you guys washed your stuff? How many of you guys, filled up your own water bottles? That's sometimes I'll hang out and I'll look in the rink and I'll see whose parents are carrying their bags in for their kids. You have kids at ages where, they're still tying their skates for them. I think I said this to Mike, and I think I said to you, Lee, I watched Mark Messier talk his youngest son through getting dressed when the kid was a 7 or 8 year old. He didn't touch a single piece of equipment. he talked them through it, and as quietly and as gently as you could imagine, talked them through the whole thing. It was amazing experience. And then, again, you see stuff you never saw, but I think there are things that have to do with good human habits that once you have those habits, it's going to help you with whatever you decide to do.
Right. And avoid the tendency of parents to say, it'd just be easier if I did it. I've said that to myself.
Right.
But it happens when you're rushed.
Rather than battle with them, I'm just going to do it.
But Christy, I want to just say, not to interrupt you, but that comes from your organizational habits. Those things come from when people are in a rush. So when we say to kids and we say to parents, like, some of them don't understand the value of getting to the rink early when you can. We understand that we're not professional players. Like, life doesn't always allow that, but when it does, it strips off so much of the anxiety that parents and kids have. You've increased the chances that something was forgotten at home, or the kid didn't eat, and it's now you're at practice, and the chances you having a productive practice are reduced quite a bit.
Right, that's a great point.
So I'm just saying, but it's all connected. So go back to the amount of sleep. Go back to, is the kid packing his bag? Like, hey, I got school today, but I know I have practice in a couple hours after. Okay, did you pack your backpack for school? Yes, Dad, I packed it. Okay, did you pack your hockey bag? No, I didn't do that yet. Go do that now. Well, I'll do it when I get. No, you're going to do it now because, but you know what I'm saying? You might need to stay after school for extra help. Where you're saying it, and like Mike's saying his face, like he's
like, I got that on a loop. You pack your bag. No, you need to pack your bag. I'll do it later. No, pack your bag. I'm like, I'm going to kill this kid.
But for me, I'll go back and I'll use stuff. And I was saying to Lee, I learned this from Tom Izzo at Michigan State, where he basically has his players put a goal down, a personal goal and a team goal in the beginning of the year, and he puts on an index card. So I do that now with our high school guys. I ask them for a goal each, and I'll just pull the card out. I put the cards in my backpack, and I'll just pull them out and say, hey, you listed this as a goal, personal goal. Is that still your goal? Yes, coach, still my goal. Okay. Is this still your team? Yes. Okay. I'm just checking because you said that was your goal.
That's accountability.
Right. Now with the younger kids, obviously, like, listen, the kid might say to you, hey, Dad, I want to play in the NHL. All right, great. You want to play in the NHL? I want to play college. Great. Do you still want to do that? Yes. Okay. Well, guys in college, they pack their own bags and they sleep. They make sure they have 8 and 9 hours of sleep. I'm just telling you, this is what they do.
I'll tell you this too, Christy, to your point, another thing with kind of getting the kids dressed is that, most guys probably won't admit this, but that's kind of some extra time I get with my kids. So sometimes you want to baby them a little bit because it reminds you again, I'm a little soft like this, depending on whose definition we're talking, but it's like, oh, I'm helping you. And it's like, I'm not though. I'm not teaching them to fish, am I? I'm giving them the fish. So I have to constantly remind myself, no, Lee, let him do this himself.
My side is always like, no, the strap has to go exactly. Like, how do you not? How is the strap cockeyed?
There's a line.
Like, what's wrong with you?
Why couldn't it be? Why couldn't it be? For one of the guys, like, hey, all right, you're gonna do your own skates tonight, and you talk them through it, and whatever it is. Hey, that's better than the last time. Now, I'll help you clean up. Then the next time, the same thing. But again,
progression.
In order to do that, you need to have that time, be at the rink at a good time, so you have time to relax.
It's a great point.
Take that time. You know what I mean? We're so rushed all the time,
and you're right.
And then you're in panic. You're like, you're telling your guy, "Hey, we can't be late to get on the ice. Let's go. Hurry up. I mean, that's not a healthy experience for the parents. Not a healthy experience for the kid. But yet, those are not like the once in a whiles. That's the more often. Right. The kid who is at the rink early, and the kid he or she has a distinct advantage over the other players over a course of time. They're going to be calmer players. They're going to be better prepared. They're going to make less mistakes. They just are. And you were saying, we were talking about habits before. That one habit that has nothing to do with talent is gold.
It's true.
Gary, the same thing. It's the same thing from your team building perspective, right? If you're a hockey coach and every single practice is you scrambling because the Zamboni's coming out and pucks are all over the place and the kid's drill's not done yet, that's your practice. I can guarantee you the reflection that you will see in the game will be that of chaos, will be that of not having a structured environment, and the coach that is literally stepping off the ice as the Zamboni doors open, there's no doubt there's a correlation between a prepared person that has a goal and objective and knows the structure and time that they have and not. And you see it every day. You see it, especially in your line, when you're in your line of work, when you're in a rink for 7 hours and you're getting to see, 6 or 7 different coaches, the ones that are prepared and the ones that aren't. And it reflects in how their teams play.
It's the same thing in the classroom. You don't think that the children know which teachers are coming in there confidently and have their roadmap for what we're doing today, as opposed to a haphazard person coming in with no kids snuff that out in 2 seconds. And now you've lost your audience, you've lost a level of respect. And if whoever you're trying to teach, if they don't respect you, you can't teach them.
Right.
I mean, it's simple as that.
I want to say this too. It's funny. You're making me think of some stories here. Just the rushing. That, again, this might be mostly a Northeast thing, to be fair to a lot of the parents listening out there, because we're always rushing. I remember Gary, Mike, Chrissy, I was working in Manhattan, and I remember I took an early train into the city one day, and I was still rushing to the office. And I remember that's when it clicked for me, like, why am I rushing? I'm like 45 minutes early. And that's when I clicked in my head, I'm always rushing. I'm always rushing. And it's because I was taught to do that. It's not a shut up my parents. But I thought about that with my own kids of, hurry up, we got to get to school. We got to get to practice. We got to get dressed. I'm like, what the hell am I teaching them? I'm the one rushing, right? They don't care. Right. So I really remember taking a step back and going, okay, I need to wake up earlier as the parent and be ready. And I need to teach them that we don't need to rush out the door every day. And I need to reward them. I mean, today's a great day. My kids had a great morning this morning. I told them, hey, you guys did great this morning. I want you to know that. It's nicer when we don't rush. Now, with that said, parents listening, I do know some of you have a 4:30 practice on a weekday and you're rushing from work and you're trying to get them there. I want to kind of throw it to the panel here. Like, there's going to be situations where there's just no time. I would still kind of take your time, do it right, get on the ice right. Obviously, you can tell the coach, and the coach should understand, I'm coming from work. I might be 15 minutes late. It's better to build the habits to do it correctly. And the prep, right? Listen, we're only going to have 15 minutes to get dressed, son, daughter. So this is what we're going to do. When I get to the rink, you're going to put this on. I'm going to put that on. We're going to work together and get you back on the ice. Mike, your point about coaches is a pet peeve of mine when I coach coaches. You must be prepared for your practices at minimum 3 hours ahead of the practice, better 24 hours ahead or the week ahead. But we're not coaching if we're showing up late and discombobulated to the kids. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to the parents. They paid money, right? You got to be prepared. But the point I'm making, guys, is all of this is the same thing, right? It's kind of mental fitness. It's being prepared. It's having a schedule. It's working together and not teaching your kids, let's go, right? Can be bad.
So that's a great point. And Caitlin can do our 6 degrees of separation of our kids play hockey, because I think my next question to you, Gary, is, Gary was introduced to Wendy Glover, who we actually had on the podcast.
Yeah.
And what Gary has done, which I love, is his work with the New York Rangers and the Junior Rangers. He's put his high school players and kids that he mentors and works with as the lead coaches in the Junior Ranger program. So they're 8 and under. I believe it's the 8 and under program, right, Gary, that you do to learn to play.
Yeah.
And the station-based program. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what the benefits are from you as a parent, as an educator, as a coach, for how you've built that athleadership kind of mentality into how you associate your kids and your players into the Junior Ranger program. And it could be any program around the, obviously any learn to play program in any rink, but how you assume the responsibility of kind of being the mentor for that, but then allowing the kids, to do all the real, heavy lifting on that program.
Yeah, well, first thing I would say is she's amazing what she does there in Canada. I mean, the experiences that those student athletes are getting is off the charts, and she's definitely a champion up there for what's good in sports, and those kids are getting tremendous benefits. So she was really nice. She sent me a bunch of information, and we just theoretically try to take some pieces of that and try to put them into play. The other thing is over here, just like you guys, I mean, days are busy. So the people in our youth programs, they're very giving of their time. We have a core group of people who are supportive. They're fantastic. So you don't do anything, on your own. You need good people around you, and that's like every walk of life. You know what I mean? And I think we would all agree to that. But I think maybe it might have even been done like either right before a pandemic or in the middle of a pandemic. Mike, I think I called you and say, listen, I have some players who want to get involved. And I was a little bit concerned about making sure that they were covered insurance-wise and things like that. And then I think you pointed me towards, hey, did you know that there was this junior kind of program? And then I think between us, we found there was like, there's literally USA Hockey has like a slide presentation. So we got everybody together on a Zoom and we talked through that, had a nice conversation. It was good. I had my own son on there and some of his friends, and I think it made them feel good. It was certainly a positive thing to put on their resumes, but the nuts and bolts was they're able a chance to give back. And again, people talk about this stuff, it's important to give back, but there's a different feeling when kids actually do it and experience it, because they don't have any reference points. There's nowhere, they're not long enough in life where they can say, oh, I can go back to that. But when they do it, they don't always admit it. But when they say, hey, when's the next one? That they're enjoying that spot. I just think it's another way to help develop in terms of the high school athletes who are doing that. But it's also value in your programs. So people are looking more value in your programs. If you have a young person who's identifies with the high school kids, that young person's going to be more likely to stay in your program and stick with your program because there's a relationship. Again, going back to that, I think the young kids benefit, the high school kids benefit, the coaches benefit. It's just one of those things. And Lee, like I've spoken to Lee about this. Like I like the triple wins. I like when everybody wins, and I'm really greedy like that. Like I'll look at to say like what's the entity getting on their side? In that case, there's nobody losing. Sometimes you'll talk to the kids about different ways to instruct and those kinds of things. But for the better part, they have a good time with it. There's just a lot of value. It doesn't get a lot of notoriety and those kinds of things, but you'll see in the stronger programs that their older players will give back. And not necessarily because they have to, but because they really enjoy it. And that's how you build long-lasting relationships and long-lasting programs.
Yeah.
It's a great point, man. Gary, just because I'm looking at the time here, one of the things I want to talk about is that you started this podcast, If You Build It. And I want you to kind of tell the audience about it, because I think you're taking a unique approach to talking about sports, and you're bringing on some pretty incredible guests too. So why don't you just tell us real quickly about why you started that and where you see it going?
So during pandemic, like all of us, I was just looking for things that would be healthy mentally to do. And through Ranger relationships, Mike knows this too, because Mike's been on with our coaches, but I tried bringing guests for our coaches just to give our guys something to look forward to and some feeling of normalcy when we're all trapped in our homes. So one of the months we were able to get on Stefan Matteau, and he grew up with Pierre Turgeon. So we had Steph and Pierre Turgeon on for like 2 hours with our coaches. And those guys were in Florida. They were on these directors' chairs, and we had this great conversation going on. It was a little surreal, like it was just, but it was good. And shortly after that, Mike had mentioned Tom Laidlaw. Tom does a bunch of podcasting and stuff like that, and he's a guy I had spoken to a lot over pandemic, just about lots of things. And he's a good guy and he does a lot of good things. He said, like, why don't you think about maybe trying to do one of these? I'll help you. And as I said to you, Lee, like total rookie, like, I'm trying to get coach to do a better job and all that. But I just thought it was an opportunity to do something positive with that 1%. If I can get 1%, I wanted to try to make an impact that way for parents, for youth athletes, and for coaches. So I know you're not going to change the world, but I find, and this conversation, and I'm not saying it's just because, but guys like you and Mike, and I've only met and speak with Caitlin a couple of times, and Christy seems like she's on board too. It's like there's people who want to get better in life, and a lot of these people now, I couldn't tell you how, but I seem now to be getting connected with people who are similar in that. Like I know I'm a very flawed person. I want to get better. And the people that I've been meeting have the same thing. Laidlaw's like that. Tommy's like that. Stuff on my toes like that. And anyway, so it just presented an opportunity where people who have a better foothold to get ears were willing to jump in and involve. And they're like, hey, whatever I can do to help. So that's kind of where it started. And then, hopefully it grows to where we can make more of an impact, kind of like what you guys are doing. And you feel good about it. There's a lot of negative stuff that you can get dragged into on an everyday basis. And I just don't choose to go that way. And this is something I care about and something, I'm passionate about trying to do that stuff. So.
Yeah, we're totally on board with you with that. It's kind of a grassroots effort, and it surprises us every week how many people are connecting and also relating. And that's the highest compliment. They said, "I totally can relate to you, and Lee and Mike," and it's really rewarding knowing that you're connecting with people and that the voices that we're hearing and we're sharing with everybody else are so needed, because you're right. It's so easy to just tune into the negativity. It gets a lot of attention, but there's
That's
a lot
what,
of
that's what sells. That's what sells. That's why it's like
that's
you
what
have like
sells.
negative,
Yeah, absolutely. Being in the news business, trust me, I know. So that's why we're here and we're shouting out loud, because I know the people listening now are they want this. There's a need for this, and there's a better direction that we can go in. So hopefully we're adjusting.
I like to ask you something from a parent perspective, if I could. So, and Mike and Lee, you guys also too, you have kids that are playing. So, like when you get to a rink and an arena and you have some parents are more boisterous than others and that kind of thing. When you talk to parents, say, listen, who here wants to make sure their child is safe? Everybody's hand goes up. Who loves their kids? Everybody's hand goes up. But yet some of the behaviors, like when kids get to the point where there's more physicality in games and all that stuff, like we say to parents, like when you yelling at your kid and you're distracting your child, so there's all kinds of things going on, you're increasing the risk of injury.
Yeah.
You love your child and like unconditionally, why would you do that?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I messed up, I did that, I'm not doing that again because I know, but yet it does. Like what do you like, why is that?
I think some parents feel that they're entitled and it's their right to speak out because it's their kid, and that they see a great wrong happening and the refs aren't making the right calls, and the coaches are being too calm on the bench. And when it's your kid, if you see your kid get hit and through your perspective, it may not even be the right perspective, but from your vantage point, it looks like your kid was taken out and the refs didn't see it. Some kind of beast comes out in these parents and they can't control it. And I think a lot of it is because they think they're right and everybody else is wrong and you didn't see it. I think that's
like parents in practice too, like they have signals, like they're doing it right, Mike, they have the signals they're doing in practice, like do this, that. Meanwhile, like you could have spent 20 minutes with a kid before practicing. Listen, you need to have your stick here. This is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, I think a lot of it, I think a lot of it is just it's not, I don't even want to say it's education, because I think a lot of these parents have all the resources we do. It's just a matter of their perspective. I mean, I've watched like the brick tryouts and a lot of stuff with the little kids, these 7, 8, 9-year-old boys and girls, and the dads behind the glass, literally, showing deke moves and giving the hand signals and running up and down the glass. And then, and this is what Lee does for a living, right, too, is that, when you don't have a strong mission statement and a strong direction, and you don't have a strong culture, then it's really hard to get that person to stop and to really like reflect on what they're doing and how bad it looks, not only for them, but for your organization. So when you can, a lot of that has to do with how do you build your organization? How do you build your program so that those kind of things are kind of not only unacceptable, but that the peer pressure from a parent's perspective is, there's 15 other parents that can turn to you and be like, Mike, you got to calm down. Like, why don't we go out and have a cup of coffee? Or, listen, this is not worth, let's not get on YouTube tonight and be on Christy's podcast for, a fight in the stands.
Yeah, let's not be on the Syracuse Nightly News, right?
Yeah, in Syracuse, New York. So I think it's just, and I think but again, but then at the end of the day, there's just, I coach lacrosse, and it's the same thing. I got dads that want to help, and they're halfway on the field screaming and yelling at their own kid, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and then they attack you. So I'm like, well, I don't want to, listen, I don't want to get involved with this either. I think it's just, but I think it's you've been involved with this for 30 years, Gary, and or more, and you can say, like, and I joke around a lot with parents, and I go, I know I have a crystal ball. Like, I know what is going to happen before it happens, not because I'm smarter than you, it's because of the experiences I've had.
Right.
And I know where this is going. We're going to stop it now, and let's try to reset and be in a place where it doesn't really affect anyone. Just let's just have listen, Gary, when you go back and listen to our episodes, perspective and understanding where you are in the game probably comes up 95% of the time in every podcast we have. And that's really, to your point, and Christy, what she just mentioned, and Lee, that's really what we try to do. We try to be, it's not even the voice of reason. It's just having perspective. Yeah, get upset. No doubt you should be pissed. Oh my God, yes, that's an egregious foul or something happened to your child. No, nobody is saying you shouldn't be upset and that it should be discounted, that you have emotions. But then there's a line of, okay, well, now how are those emotions not only affecting your child, your team, other children? If you claim to be a lover of kids and lover of children and a lover of sport, then what are you doing to minimize all that carnage? How do you help officials? How do you help your fellow coaches? And then how do you be a real good sport? And I don't mean sportsmanship, but be loving sport. If you love sport and you love the sport you're in, then you're going to find ways to accommodate everyone in the the ecosystem of where you're at. So I think it's and you've seen that in your watching you from where my perspective is. I've seen you do that, so that's a tribute to what you've done in your district. But we have to find ways to replicate that.
No. Yeah, and also I think it forces people to be pretty honest what their agendas are too. You know what I mean? Like, is it really, are you really here? Like, the other people say it's all about the kids and all that stuff. Okay, is it about the kids? Because if it is, then it should be what the total support and betterment is of that development as a person first.
Yeah.
Are you doing things
right? Just tell me you don't give a crap. You don't give a crap about the other kid. Just tell me that. Okay, at least I know. I only care about my kid. I don't even care if your kid gets better. I don't care about it. I don't care about it. Okay, good. At least I know where you're coming from. This
is what I'll say. First thing I'll say is this: any parent that's vocal cares about their kid most of the time, right? I mean, you're not the parent that doesn't show up is the parent that doesn't care. I don't mean people for work. I mean that the person who doesn't, and I don't think there's a lot of parents out there like that. But I think all this comes down to an improper definition of what winning really is. All right. Winning the game or winning the situation is nice. Being competitive is great. But you got to really understand you're developing a person, Gary, to bring this back to what you were saying. You make a better person, you're going to make a better hockey player or player. You're coaching your kid from the glass. I promise you're not making your kid a better person at that point. And what I try and do, guys, is, and I work on this all the time. I got to take my own ego out of it. So Gary, I hear parents, even in my kids' Mike games, yelling, and I really shut the judge in my head off. You can hear it. Parents, you go, why is that parent yelling at their kid? Oh my God, don't they realize it's just a Mike game? Or don't they realize? I turn that off, right? That parent and that kid is on their journey. Who the hell am I to judge them on what they're doing? Now, if they ever come to me for advice, which they're not obligated to do it anyway, I'm there. There's a great statement: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I am a student and a teacher, right, at the same time. So my idea is, for parents, I try and create bonds with the parents of the team. And, if you want to be a part of that, great. If not, no worries. We're all on our own journey. It's not my kid versus your kid, at least at the mite level. Right now, it's just, I want my kid to enjoy the game. And yes, I want them to compete too. I often say I want them smiling when they come off the ice. It doesn't mean I don't want them to compete, but you got to prioritize these things, right? The competition will come, the enjoyment of the game you can lose really quick. So again, when it comes to parents, I think it's an improper definition of what winning is. And I think we all have to take our own egos out of it, right? The thought that you can coach your kid from the glass and the team, which is not even your focus, will win. It doesn't happen. I mean, maybe you'll help them one time, but let your coach do their job, right? And if the coach isn't good, have a conversation. There's so many ways to do this, right? But it starts with ego and taking the ego out from all parties, not just the other parents, yourself included.
As if you have parents who made the commitment to put their child on your team, then you would suspect that there's a certain amount of trust.
You'd hope so.
So if that's there, then then you can actually make some progress. And it's even to ask a parent, like, we could do a lot here if we're pulling the same direction.
Right.
And it has to be, mutual relationship with
right.
those kinds of things.
It's on the coaches to communicate this at the start of the season as well. And look, we've talked about this on the show, Christy, you know this, you're not always going to have a great season. So when your kid's dealing with the adversity, do you want to be the parent that's at the board shouting and screaming and telling your kid what to do? Or do you want to take it for what it is? This is going to be a tough season. It's adversity. How are we going to deal with this as a family? It's not going to be easy, but you're still going to show up on time. You're still going to get your equipment on time. You're still going to give your best effort no matter what, because those are the habits that create a champion long term. But you got to use adversity is an opportunity every time. Guys, I hate to say this, but we're out of time.
Oh my goodness.
We're completely out of
This
time.
is such a great conversation.
Yeah.
I just didn't want it to end.
Right. And it unfortunately it has to, because we have a hard out today. But like, Gary, we'll have you back on again. First off, I want to thank you for being here. You've been an awesome guest. And as Mike Christie said, this is all about perspective for those of you listening. We're getting so many emails now. I'm trying to reply to all of them as much as I can. I can't tell you all that are sending us notes how much we appreciate it. Feedback, questions, episode topics, keep sending them in. We want them. It helps us do a better job. And guests like Gary coming on to give other perspectives aside from the three of us. It really helps this show go. So Gary, above all, I want to thank you again for coming on today. You're fantastic.
No, I appreciate it. It's good therapy for me. I just do want to say, while I'm thinking of it, because I forget a lot of stuff these days, that things to think about for some of the parents, like that healthy competitiveness. We do live in a world with a lot of competition, and a lot of it's healthy competition, whether it's applying for colleges, jobs, these things, like they're healthy things, and it's okay to learn how to do that also. It doesn't have to be where we think of people that are, above what's realistic sometimes with that, but there's a part that we could use a little bit more of that healthy competition in the world. And the other thing I would say quickly is for the parents, like, if you have a child that wants more and they're looking for more opportunities, encourage your child to talk to their coach and have that be your first line of defense. And it's a simple question like, Coach, what would I have to do to play more? What would I have to do to be on the power play? What would I have to do to be out there in the last minute of the game? Just ask the question. And it's a great exercise for a parent working with a child. And you know what? When we talk about relaxation, it's a more relaxed thing than a parent getting all worked up. And you're helping your child develop. So that's my two little pieces that wanted to get in before I forgot.
Oh, fantastic. If the coach is worth his or her salt, they'll be willing to have that conversation, and
Exactly.
the athlete will be willing to listen. You might not like the answer, but at least you'll have an answer, right?
And they'll appreciate it, right? Like from
Right.
the coach, they appreciate the athlete coming to them first. And your parents have taught their children how to stand up on their own feet and advocate for themselves when you have that. And every parent wants that for the kids, no matter what they're doing.
Life
Every
lessons,
parent would love
right?
it. Right. They want to teach how to,
Right.
hey, stick up for yourself, advocate for yourself. Go ahead. There's a way to do it. And here's a good start.
Yeah,
Create a better
especially
person.
your parents when they're in college. You shouldn't be emailing the professors about problems with your kids. It's happening because I'm in the college circuit and I hear it all the time. And I have friends who are professors, and they just don't appreciate it. It's hands off when they're in college. They're adults.
Yeah.
But it didn't start in college. That's what we're talking about. Like those
Right.
long-term habits and how you work with your kids, talking them through getting dressed, helping them and taking that time. That skill set built up over time as well. It's the same things we're talking about in the rink, but they're probably more important. But yet we're not doing enough of that and taking time to do those things where you can just benefit from those things all the way around. So
Hey, look, you're never not a parent, but I've always viewed college. That's the finish line for parenting, right? Yeah, that's the finish
They're
line.
crossing it, unfortunately.
If they're not ready after that finish line, they're on their own for real after that. You can't email their boss when they're having a bad day. So you better start those habits early.
I could share with you, just ridiculous.
Well, that's another episode we'll have to do. But
Yeah.
again, remember, I think the theme here is create a better person, you'll create a better player. All right. And you can't reverse those two things. So Gary Dworkowitz, great to have you on again. Check out his podcast. If You Build It, it's on major podcasting platforms. If anything, listen to Stefan Matteau and some of his friends, Laidlaw. These guys like to joke around on the podcast. It's fantastic. So thank you all for being here once again. Again, check out our Facebook community, Our Kids Play Hockey. You can email us at team@ourkidsplayhockey.com and check out the website for all our episodes. For my good friends, Christy Casciano-Burns and Mike Benelli and Gary Dworkowitz today, thanks for listening to this episode, and we'll see you all next time on Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a great week, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.